This is Deep Time Detective, and today we're solving a mystery: 60 minutes of fire.
I want you to imagine a world that's been thriving for 165 million years. A world of absolute giants, of lush green continents, a planet just teeming with life. Now rewind the clock 66 million years. That was our Earth, a stable, vibrant Cretaceous paradise that honestly looked like it would last forever.
And that's what this is all about. The story of that single hour. We're not just talking about the day the dinosaurs died. We're talking about the specific 60 minutes where their entire world was completely and utterly erased. So let's walk through this apocalypse, minute by minute.
So picture this. It's a Tuesday morning, late spring. A Tyrannosaurus rex is hanging out by a riverbank. Flying overhead, you've got these giant pterosaurs with wingspans as big as a Cessna airplane, casting shadows on the forest floor. This is a planet at its absolute peak, with no idea, none whatsoever, of what's about to happen.
And the countdown begins. Way up, high above that blue sky, beyond the air, beyond the weather, something's coming. It's this silent messenger that's been on a collision course for millions of years, and its path is finally about to cross with a shallow sea in what we now call the Yucatan Peninsula.
And let's be really clear about the size of this thing. We are not talking about a rock. We are talking about a literal mountain falling out of space. It's about 10 kilometers across, a super dense ball of rock and metal that's basically the size of Mount Everest. And the speed, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. It's moving at 20 kilometers per second. To give you some perspective, that's 60 times faster than a speeding bullet. There is absolutely no time to react. Okay, so T-minus 60 seconds. Our timeline starts now. The asteroid slams into the upper atmosphere and it doesn't really slow down or burn up. It just punches a hole through the air like it's tissue paper. And for a split second, it becomes a second sun, the brightest thing this world has ever seen. And then, impact. At that exact moment, the basic physics of our planet are just fundamentally rewritten. In only a matter of minutes, the world that the dinosaurs knew is physically torn apart. The impact itself unleashes this unimaginable amount of energy. The number you're seeing, 100 million megatons, it's so huge it's basically meaningless, right? So let's try to put that into a context we can actually wrap our minds around.
So, the Tsar Bomba. That was the most powerful nuclear weapon humanity ever created. The asteroid impact was the same as setting off 2 million of them in the exact same spot at the exact same time. It's just staggering.
The effects right at ground zero are catastrophic. Within 2 minutes, the impact triggers a magnitude 11 earthquake. You know, our modern scale pretty much stops at 10. This was literally off the charts. Then, just 3 minutes later, a mega tsunami 1 kilometer high, taller than any skyscraper on Earth today, races out from the impact, just wiping coastlines clean for thousands of miles.
But, as devastating as the earthquake and the tsunami were, they were regional. The real global killer, the thing that sealed the fate of nearly every large animal on the planet, didn't come from the ground. It came from the sky itself.
So how in the world does the sky just catch fire? Well, it was this terrifying 4-step process. First, the impact vaporized and blasted 1 trillion tons of rock straight up into space. Now this debris, all this dust and rock, it didn't go into orbit, it just fell right back down all over the globe. And as these millions of tiny particles re-entered the atmosphere, friction heated them up until they glowed red hot. The entire sky, everywhere on Earth, began to glow, turning the atmosphere into a planetary-scale broiler oven, which then ignited forests from above.
And down on the ground, the temperature spiked to 200 degrees Celsius. That's almost 400 degrees Fahrenheit. For context, that is literally the boiling point of water. The very air became an oven.
And for the giants, the tyrannosaurs, the triceratops, there was just no escape. They were simply too big to dig a hole or find shelter from that searing heat. Their greatest evolutionary advantage, their incredible size, suddenly became a fatal flaw.
And so, just like that, our timeline is complete. Only 20 minutes after impact, the sky catches fire. By the 60-minute mark, it's all over. The wave of heat is past, but its work is done. The age of reptiles is ended, and a dark shroud of smoke from burning continents begins to wrap around the globe.
But the end of their story is the beginning of ours. And you have to be wondering,
How could we possibly know all these details with such stunning precision? And who were the lucky few that actually made it through this planetary nightmare?
Well, the evidence is literally written in stone. All around the world, we found this thin global layer of iridium. That's an element that's super rare on Earth but common in asteroids, marking the exact boundary. We found the crater itself, 20 kilometers deep. And maybe, most incredibly, at a fossil site called Tanis, we found fish that died within this very hour, their gills clogged with these tiny glass beads of vaporized rock that rained down from the sky.
So the survivors, they weren't the biggest or the strongest. They were the meek, and they inherited a broken Earth. They were small, often active at night, and crucially, they could burrow to escape the heat. They were generalists, able to survive on things like seeds and insects when the entire global food chain fell apart. And that profile, it perfectly describes our own distant mammalian ancestors.
And that, right there, is the most profound part of this whole thing. Every single one of us is here today because our ancestors were small enough to hide in a burrow while the world above them was literally an oven. You are a direct descendant of the survivors of the single worst hour in the history of life on Earth.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty sobering thought. The dinosaurs ruled this planet for 165 million years, and they were wiped out in an hour with absolutely no warning and no choice in the matter. We are now the dominant species, and we're aware of the forces that can change our planet. What we do in our hour, well, that's up to us.
If you enjoyed this journey through deep time, like, share, and subscribe, and join us